Close your eyes and let the modern world fade away. Behind you lies the chaos of the present. Before you, the cool marble threshold of an empire at its peak. Today, you aren't just a visitor. You are a soul seeking stillness in the heart of ancient Rome. Your journey begins in the pale blue light of dawn, where the only sound is the rhythmic pulse of a stone fountain. From there, we will walk together through a town that breathes with peace. We'll catch the golden scent of the morning bakeries, feel the heavy silence of sun-drenched libraries, and witness the flicker of the very first oil lamps as the Mediterranean sun dips below the horizon. Finally, we will let the deepening shadows of a 2,000-year-old night wrap around us, drifting into a sleep so profound it feels eternal. This is a story of a world that understood the beauty of a slow breath. If you're ready to let go of the noise, follow me into the quiet. Let's live one perfect ancient day. The morning light begins to arrive in a soft and pale glow as it touches the terracotta tiles of the rooftops across the town. It is a slow and steady light that moves across the stone walls and the narrow paths of the garden with a quiet grace. You wake in a room that is cool and still, where the air carries the faint and clean scent of lavender and dried herbs hanging from the rafters. The walls are smooth and painted in deep ochre and soft cream, and the floor beneath your feet is made of small and polished stones that feel cool and solid. You move slowly through the house, hearing only the rhythmic sound of your own steady breathing and the distant, muffled sound of a bird calling from a cypress tree outside. As you walk into the central courtyard, the open sky above is a pale and gentle blue, and the air is perfectly still. In the center of the courtyard, a small stone fountain trickles with a consistent and melodic rhythm, the water clear and cold as it spills over the rim of a marble basin. You watch the small ripples move across the surface of the water, and you feel a sense of profound peace as the day begins in this quiet and orderly world. You dress yourself in soft layers of linen and wool, feeling the gentle weight of the fabric against your skin. The movements are slow and deliberate as you wrap the cloth around you, securing it with simple pins that catch the morning light. You step out onto the street, where the large and flat paving stones are still cool from the night air. The town is beginning to stir, but it is a soft and measured awakening. You hear the rhythmic sound of wooden shutters being pushed open, and the distant and muffled clatter of a cart moving slowly along a nearby lane. The air smells of fresh bread from a baker's oven, and the damp, earthy scent of the stone streets being splashed with water to settle the dust. You walk toward the market square, noticing how the shadows of the tall columns stretch long and thin across the ground. There is no haste in the people you pass, only a quiet sense of purpose as they arrange baskets of olives and jars of honey on wooden tables. The colors of the market are muted and natural, with the deep greens of herbs, the dusty gold of grain, and the dark, rich purple of grapes resting in woven cradles. As you wander through the market, you hear the low and steady hum of voices, a gentle murmur that blends with the sound of the wind moving through the leaves of the plane trees. You stop to watch a potter working at his wheel in a small shop that opens onto the street. His hands are covered in gray clay, and he moves with a slow and rhythmic precision, shaping a tall jar that will one day hold oil or wine. The sound of the spinning wheel is a constant and soothing drone, and you stay for a long while, watching the clay rise and fall under his steady fingers. There's a deep comfort in the repetition of the work, and the knowledge that these shapes have been made in the same way for generations. You continue your walk, feeling the sun begin to warm your shoulders as it rises higher in the sky. The light is golden and clear, illuminating the intricate carvings on the front of a small temple dedicated to the hearth. You see a woman standing by the entrance, her head covered in a soft veil, as she carefully arranges a garland of white flowers around the stone altar. The scent of the flowers is sweet and light, drifting on the air and mixing with the faint smell of beeswax candles burning within the cool shadows of the interior. The morning flows seamlessly into the midday hours, and the heat of the sun becomes a warm and comforting weight. You find yourself walking toward the public baths, where the high vaulted ceilings create a space of echoes and soft light. You enter the rooms where the air is thick with steam and the sound of falling water. The floors are decorated with vast mosaics of sea creatures and swirling patterns of blue and green, and you walk across them slowly, feeling the warmth rising from the heating system beneath the tiles. In the quietest corner of the bathhouse, you rest in a pool of still and tepid water, letting the weight of your body be supported by the calm surface. The light filters down from high windows in long and dusty shafts, illuminating the steam as it rises in slow and curling ribbons toward the ceiling. Everything here is measured and slow, a space designed for the body to find its natural rhythm again. You hear the distant and rhythmic sound of a scraper being used in another room, and the low, resonant echoes of people speaking in hushed and respectful tones. When you leave the bath, the town has settled into the quiet rest of the afternoon. The streets are mostly empty as the people have retreated into the shade of their homes and the cool recesses of their shops. You walk through a neighborhood of tall stone houses where the gardens are hidden behind high walls, but you can smell the damp earth and the fragrance of blooming jasmine spilling over the edges of the stone. You find a bench beneath a large oak tree in a small and quiet square, and you sit there for a long time, watching the way the sunlight flickers through the leaves. A teacher sits nearby with a small group of students, their voices low and steady as they read from a long scroll of papyrus. The sound of the reading is like a gentle song, the words flowing one after another in a language that feels ancient and solid. You listen to the rise and fall of the voice, not needing to understand every word, but simply feeling the calm of the knowledge being shared in the warmth of the day. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, the air becomes softer and the colors of the town begin to deepen. You walk toward the edge of the town, where the stone walls give way to the rolling hills of the countryside. The silver-green leaves of the olive trees shimmer in the late afternoon light, and the rows of grapevines are heavy with fruit that glows like jewels. You see a group of workers returning from the fields, their pace slow and easy as they carry their tools over their shoulders. They speak to one another in quiet tones, their laughter soft and brief, disappearing into the vast and quiet landscape. The world feels large and peaceful, a place where the seasons turn with a predictable and comforting regularity. You find a small shrine by the side of the road, where a small flame burns in an oil lamp made of red clay. You stand there for a moment, feeling the stillness of the trees and the cooling air, and you realize that the day has moved with a perfect and unhurried grace. You return to the heart of the town as the first lanterns are being lit. The light from the small oil lamps is warm and flickering, casting long and soft shadows against the stone walls. You walk past a house where a festival is being celebrated, but it is a quiet and intimate gathering. The entrance is draped with garlands of ivy and laurel, and the sound of a lyre drifts out from the inner courtyard. The music is thin and sweet, a series of high and clear notes that seem to float on the evening air. You see people gathered around the long table, their faces glowing in the candlelight as they share bread and wine and bowls of dried fruits. There's a sense of shared belonging in the way they sit together, a feeling of continuity that stretches back through the years. The festival is not loud or boisterous, but a steady and calm expression of gratitude for the harvest and the safety of the home. You watch the flickering candles for a time, feeling the warmth of the scene before moving back into the deepening blue of the twilight. The sky is now a deep and velvet indigo, and the stars are beginning to appear, one by one, in the vast and silent space above. You walk back toward your own home, the sound of your footsteps on the stone paths becoming the only sound in the cooling air. The shops have all closed their shutters, and the town is beginning to fold in on itself, settling down for the long and quiet night. You reach your door and step inside, where the air is cool and smells of the damp stone and the fading scent of the garden. You light a single small lamp and carry it through the rooms, the golden light following you and pushing back the soft shadows. You look out into the courtyard once more, where the fountain continues its rhythmic trickling, a sound that seems to grow louder in the silence of the night. The water is a dark and shifting mirror, reflecting the pale light of the moon as it rises above the tiled roof. You prepare for sleep with slow and heavy movements, feeling the fatigue of a day well spent in the quiet rhythm of the world. You extinguish the lamp, and the room is plunged into a soft and natural darkness that is not empty, but filled with the peace of the night. You lie down on the cool linens, feeling the weight of your body sink into the bed as your breath becomes slow and deep. Outside, the town has become perfectly still. The distant voices have faded away, the lanterns have been blown out, and the fires in the hearths have turned to glowing embers. The only sound is the wind moving softly through the cypress trees and the steady, eternal pulse of the water in the fountain. The stars watch over the stone streets and the silent gardens, and the world is held in a deep and restorative calm. The darkness is thick and comforting, a blanket that covers the hills and the valleys and the quiet rooms of the houses. Everything is at rest, and the night continues its slow and silent journey toward the dawn. The air is cool and still, and the shadows are long and soft, and the peace of the ancient town is complete. The sound of the water is a whisper, a low and constant song that lulls the spirit into a dreamless and heavy sleep. The stone walls are cold and solid, holding the silence within them as the hours move forward in a slow and invisible procession. The stars remain bright and distant, and the town sleeps under the vast and quiet sky, and the silence is deep and total. The stillness of the room is profound, a deep and velvet silence that feels as though it has existed for centuries. You lie perfectly still, the linen sheet smooth and cool against your skin, while the air in the chamber remains hushed and fragrant with the lingering scent of beeswax and sun-warmed stone. The distant trickle of the courtyard fountain has become a part of the silence itself, a rhythmic and watery heartbeat that anchors the house in the quiet of the night. You feel the weight of your limbs, heavy and relaxed, as the slow pace of the Roman day settles into your bones. There is no sound from the street outside, for the town has surrendered entirely to the darkness, and the great stone paving paths are now only shadows under the silver light of the moon. The moon travels across the sky with a slow and invisible grace, casting a pale and milky glow through the high opening in the roof. This light moves across the floor, touching the edges of a low wooden chest and the soft folds of a garment draped over a chair, turning the familiar world into a landscape of soft grays and deep blacks. You watch the light shift with a steady and unhurried patience, feeling your thoughts drift like the slow smoke of a dying ember. The world beyond these walls is vast and peaceful, stretching out across the sleeping hills where the olive groves stand in silent ranks and the tall grasses lean gently in the night breeze. There is a sense of great continuity in this darkness, a feeling that the earth is breathing in a long and restorative rhythm that will continue long after the sun returns. You breathe in the cool, clean air, feeling it fill your lungs and then leave you in a slow and effortless flow. Every muscle in your body has let go of its task, and you are supported by the solid earth and the ancient stone of the house. The echoes of the day, the sound of the potter's wheel, the murmur of the market, the soft laughter by the lantern light, have all dissolved into this single moment of absolute quiet. The night is a vast and gentle sea, and you are drifting on its surface, safe and enclosed within the heavy walls of your home. The darkness is kind and heavy, pressing gently against your eyelids until the boundary between the room and the night sky begins to fade. In the far distance, a single owl calls from the dark branches of a pine tree, a sound that is soft and round and perfectly at peace with the silence. It is a reminder of the life that continues in the shadows, a quiet and watchful presence that does not disturb the rest of the world. You feel a sense of profound safety, knowing that the town is watched over by the stars and the steady pulse of the seasons. The lamps have all gone out, and the embers in the kitchen hearth have turned to fine gray ash, releasing their last warmth into the stones. The world is turning slowly, moving through the deep hours of the night with a grace that requires nothing from you but your own rest. Your mind is as still as the water in the marble basin downstairs, a smooth surface reflecting only the quiet and the dark. The thoughts of the day are gone, replaced by the simple sensation of the air moving over your face and the soft weight of the blankets. The night deepens, becoming thicker and more silent as the moon sinks lower in the sky. The shadows in the corners of the room grow long and soft, blending together until the walls seem to move away into the distance. You are sinking deeper into the warmth of the bed, moving further into the heart of the night, where there is only the sound of your own slow breathing and the immense, comforting silence of the Roman world at rest. The hours pass without a sound, a long and seamless flow of time that carries the town toward the morning. But the morning is still far away, and for now there is only the darkness and the peace. The stones hold the coolness of the earth, and the timber beams above you are silent and strong. You are part of this house, part of this town, and part of the long history of people who have found sleep in this same quiet way. The world is held in a perfect and unchanging stillness, and you let yourself go into it, falling away from the light and into the deep and endless calm of the sleeping world. The pre-dawn hours arrive with a stillness that is even deeper than the midnight watch, a time when the world seems to hold its breath in the cool and fragrant dark. The air in your room has become crisp and thin, carrying the subtle scent of the dew that is beginning to settle upon the leaves of the lemon trees and the cold surfaces of the marble statues in the garden. You remain enveloped in the heavy warmth of your blankets, feeling the profound contrast between the snug sanctuary of your bed and the vast open silence of the Roman night. The stars above the courtyard have shifted their positions, appearing larger and more brilliant as the atmosphere clears in the late hours, casting a faint and ethereal shimmer onto the water of the fountain. The trickling sound has become a delicate silver thread of noise, consistent and unchanging, a reminder that the world moves forward even when all is at rest. Beyond the walls of your home, the great stone theater and the tall columns of the forum stand like silent sentinels in the gloom. There are no footsteps on the paths, and the dust of the day has been pressed flat by the moisture of the cooling air. You imagine the long, straight roads that lead away from the town, stretching out through the sleeping countryside where the heavy heads of wheat bow low in the fields, and the tall forests of oak and pine are filled with a thick and motionless shadow. The entire empire seems to be breathing in unison, a slow and rhythmic rise and fall that transcends the individual and connects every home, every villa, and every quiet workshop in a single web of peace. In the kitchen, the large ceramic jars of grain and oil sit in the darkness, their shapes rounded and solid, holding the harvest of the sun within their cool clay walls. The heavy wooden table, worn smooth by generations of hands, rests in the center of the room, a silent witness to the simple meals and the quiet conversations of the days gone by. Everything in the house feels anchored and permanent, rooted in the earth and the traditions of the ancestors who once walked these same floors. You feel an immense sense of gratitude for the weight of the stone and the strength of the timber, for the order and the harmony that allow for such a deep and undisturbed repose. The world is held in a perfect and unchanging stillness, and you let yourself go into it, falling away from the light and into the deep and endless calm of the sleeping world. The gray light slowly gathers strength, turning the deep blues of the sky into a pale and misty violet. The tops of the cypress trees begin to emerge against the horizon, their dark and slender forms swaying ever so slightly in a breeze that is as light as a sigh. The air is filled with a promise of a new beginning, but it is a promise that is whispered, not shouted. You close your eyes once more, letting the soft and fading light wash over you, feeling yourself drifting on the very edge of wakefulness and the very heart of peace. The world is quiet, the town is still, and the long and beautiful night continues to hold you in its gentle embrace as the shadows slowly begin to retreat. The first arrival of the light is not a sudden event, but a slow and patient unfolding that begins at the very highest points of the world. High above the sleeping town, the tip of a single marble column in the forum catches a stray beam of light that has traveled across the distant purple peaks of the mountains. This light is at first a pale and delicate rose, a color so soft it is almost a shadow, but it gradually warms into a thin ribbon of liquid gold. You lie in the stillness of your room and watch as this golden glow begins to creep down the smooth surface of the stone walls, moving with a steady and rhythmic pace that mirrors the slow turning of the earth. The light is soft and diffused, filtered through the morning mist that clings to the terracotta roofs, and it fills the air with a quiet and golden clarity that feels new and ancient all at once. Outside your window, the light touches the very tops of the dark green cypress trees, turning their needle-like leaves into shimmering towers of bronze. The mist in the garden begins to stir, curling into slow and lazy spirals as the warmth of the sun gently nudges the cool air of the night. You hear the very first sound of the morning, a single and tentative chirp from a small bird nestled in the eaves, followed by a long and comfortable silence. Then another bird answers from across the courtyard, their voices clear and melodic, rising and falling in a gentle dialogue that celebrates the return of the light. The sound is not a disruption, but a beautiful addition to the silence, a natural music that belongs to the stone and the trees and the morning sky. As the light descends further, it spills over the rim of the fountain in the courtyard, turning the trickling water into a stream of falling diamonds. The ripples on the surface of the pool catch the glow, dancing in small and rhythmic patterns of gold and blue. The shadows in the corners of the house begin to pull back, retreating into the deep recesses of the hallways and the cool spaces behind the heavy wooden doors. The floor of your room is now striped with long and narrow bars of golden light that stretch across the polished stones, eliminating the dust motes that drift in the air like tiny glowing stars. The world is waking up with a profound and measured grace, a slow expansion of color and warmth that feels like the gentle opening of a flower. You notice how the light brings out the textures of the world around you, the rough grain of the timber beams, the smooth and cool surface of the ceramic oil lamp, and the soft woven threads of your linen blankets. Everything is rendered with a beautiful and quiet clarity, as if the world has been washed clean by the night and is being presented to you in its purest form. The air is still cool, but you can feel the faint and growing promise of the midday warmth held within the light. There is no haste in this sunrise, no clamor or noise, only a steady and inevitable progression of beauty. The golden light continues to spread, touching the rows of amphora lined up in the courtyard and the garlands of dried herbs hanging from the kitchen rafters. The scents of the morning begin to rise, the smell of damp earth, the sweetness of the jasmine, and the faint, resinous aroma of the pine trees on the hills. You hear the distant and muffled sound of a heavy door creaking open somewhere in the neighborhood, and the soft, rhythmic splash of a bucket being lowered into a well. These sounds are sparse and distant, separated by long pauses of perfect quiet, marking the very beginning of a day that will be as calm and orderly as the one that came before. The sky has now turned to a pale and luminous blue, and the sun itself begins to appear over the horizon, a glowing orb of soft gold that fills the world with a steady and comforting radiance. The long shadows of the columns and the trees stretch across the ground, pointing the way toward the heart of the day. You remain in the stillness, watching the light reclaim the town, feeling the warmth settle onto the stone and the wood and your own resting form. The transition is complete. The night has folded away into the memory of the earth, and the world is once again bathed in the gentle and eternal light of the Roman morning. The light is steady, the air is calm, and the day begins with a quiet and profound peace that flows through the streets and the gardens like a slow and golden river. Everything is as it should be, held in the balance of the sun and the stone, in a world that knows the value of a slow and quiet life. The golden light now reaches the wide, open paving stones of the market square, turning the gray volcanic rock into a warm and glowing floor. You walk slowly toward the center of the town, feeling the gentle transition from the private silence of your home to the soft, rhythmic hum of the morning gathering. The air here is fresh and carries a complex, pleasing tapestry of scents that shift as you move through the space. You smell the deep, earthy aroma of large baskets filled with unwashed root vegetables, the sharp and clean fragrance of freshly cut mint and rosemary, and the sweet, heavy scent of local honey stored in smooth terracotta jars. The market awakens with a steady and predictable grace, a choreography of simple movements that has been repeated for centuries. You watch as a farmer from the nearby hills unloads a cart of round green melons, placing them one by one onto a bed of straw with a soft and muffled thud. His movements are slow and deliberate, his hands dark and lined from the sun, moving with a quiet efficiency that requires no words. Nearby, a woman in a stola of undyed wool arranges small mountains of olives, some the color of dark wine, others a bright and waxy green, into polished wooden bowls. She pauses to wipe the edge of a table with a damp cloth, the rhythmic motion of her hand creating a soothing sound against the wood. The voices of the market are low and melodic, a gentle murmur that rises and falls like the sound of a distant stream. There is no shouting or frantic energy here. Instead, you hear the calm exchange of greetings and the soft clink of small bronze coins being placed into ceramic bowls. You listen to the steady, rhythmic sound of a grain merchant scooping wheat from a large sack, the dry seeds sliding against the metal scoop with a sound like falling rain. The grain is clean and golden, spilling into a linen bag held open by a young boy who stands patiently in the dappled shade of a portico. You walk beneath the high, shaded arches of the market hall, where the air is noticeably cooler and smells of damp stone and dry parchment. Here, the cloth merchants have draped long bolts of linen and fine wool over wooden railings. The fabrics are dyed in soft, natural tones, the pale yellow of saffron, the deep red of madder root, and the soft blue of woad. You reach out a hand and feel the texture of the cloth, the weave honest and strong beneath your fingers, carrying the coolness of the morning within its fibers. The merchants sit on low stools, their hands busy with small tasks, occasionally nodding to a passerby with a quiet and respectful smile. As the sun rises higher, the light begins to play across the colorful displays, illuminating the translucent skin of grapes and the silver scales of fish resting on beds of cool green leaves. You see a baker arriving with a large basket of flatbreads, still warm from the oven and smelling of yeast and toasted grain. The steam rises from the bread in thin, wispy curls, disappearing into the bright morning air. The baker moves with a slow and rhythmic pace, setting the loaves out in neat rows, his face calm and settled in a knowledge of a task well done. In a quiet corner of the square, a fountain shaped like a lion's head spills a steady stream of water into a stone basin. You stop there for a moment, watching the way the light catches the arc of the water, turning it into a ribbon of liquid glass. People come to the fountain with clay pitchers, moving with a relaxed and unhurried grace as they wait for their turn. The sound of the water splashing into the vessels is a constant, hollow note that underpins all the other sounds of the market, a reminder of the steady flow of life through the town. The square is now filled with the gentle energy of a community in harmony, a collection of individuals moved by the same quiet purpose. You feel a deep sense of belonging in this space, a witness to the simple beauty of trade and tradition. There is a profound comfort in the reliability of the morning, the familiar smells, the steady voices, and the golden light that warms the stone and the people alike. You find the stone bench at the edge of the square and sit for a while, letting the scene wash over you in a slow and peaceful wave. The world is orderly and kind, a place where the smallest details are attended to with care, and where the passage of time is marked not by a clock, but by the slow movement of shadows across the paving stones. The light transitions into a soft and scholarly dimness as you step from the garden into the quiet sanctuary of a library. The air here is different, cooler and filled with the dry, comforting scent of aged papyrus, cedarwood, and the faint, sweet trace of dried ink. Large wooden cabinets line the walls, their deep shelves filled with hundreds of scrolls, each resting in its own circular niche with a small parchment tag hanging down like a silent leaf. You walk across the mosaic floor, your footsteps making a soft, muffled sound on the intricate patterns of vines and geometric shapes. The library is a place of profound stillness, where the high, vaulted ceiling catches the whispers of the wind from outside and turns them into a low, resonant hum. You find a place at a long table, made of dark, polished oak, where a scribe is working at the far end. The only sound in the room is the rhythmic scratching of his reed pen as it moves across a fresh sheet of papyrus. It is a steady and soothing sound, a tiny scrape followed by a brief silence, then another scrape, like the ticking of a slow and ancient clock. You watch the way his hand moves with a fluid, disciplined grace, leaving behind rows of elegant, dark characters that hold the thoughts and histories of the world. The sunlight filters through a high, narrow window, casting a single sharp beam that illuminates the dust motes dancing in the air, making them look like a slow-moving galaxy of gold. There is no hurry here, only the patient preservation of knowledge, a sense that time is being held within the rolls of parchment, waiting to be rediscovered in the quiet hours of a peaceful afternoon. As you leave the library, the heat of the day has reached its zenith, and the town has begun its daily transition into the long and deep afternoon rest. The brilliant golden light of the high sun has turned the streets into a landscape of sharp contrasts, where the white stone reflects a dazzling clarity, and the shadows under the porticos are as dark and cool as deep water. You walk back through the lanes, noticing how the shutters have been drawn tight across the windows of the houses, and the heavy wooden doors are closed against the warmth. The market square, so busy only a few hours ago, is now a vast and silent space of empty stone, with only the persistent trickle of the fountain to mark the passage of the minutes. You return to your own home, stepping through the doorway and feeling the immediate embrace of the thick stone walls. The interior is a reservoir of coolness, a quiet refuge where the air is still and the light is a soft, reflected glow. You move to a small, private room that overlooks the inner garden, where a low couch is draped with soft linen and cushions stuffed with dried wool. The sound of the world outside has faded to a distant, indistinct murmur, as if the entire town has collectively decided to pause and breathe in unison. You lie down on the couch, feeling the weight of your body being fully supported, every muscle letting go of the morning's gentle exertions. The afternoon rest is a time of profound stillness, a period where the boundary between waking and dreaming becomes as thin as a veil. You watch the shadows of the vine leaves move slowly across the floor of the courtyard, their patterns shifting in a lazy, rhythmic dance that requires nothing from you but your observation. The air is heavy and sweet, carrying the scent of warm terracotta and the cooling water of the fountain. There is a deep and resonant comfort in this silence, a feeling of being perfectly aligned with the natural rhythm of the day. You feel your eyelids grow heavy, the scratching of the scribe's pen and the hum of the market now only distant echoes in the back of your mind. The world is at rest, held in the warm and golden palm of the afternoon. The birds are silent in the trees, the workshops are still, and the streets are empty of all but the light. You allow yourself to sink further into the cushions, your breath becoming slow and rhythmic, matching the deep and steady pulse of the sleeping town. Everything is calm, everything is quiet, and the long, sun-drenched hours of the afternoon stretch out before you like a calm and endless sea. In this moment of absolute peace, you are part of the stone, the light, and the silence, drifting slowly into a deep and restorative slumber. The shadows begin to lengthen with a slow and graceful patience, stretching across the courtyard floor in long, thin fingers of cooling blue. As the intense heat of the afternoon sun begins to soften, the town stirs from its rest with a quiet and rhythmic ease. You rise from your couch, feeling refreshed and steady, the stillness of the house still wrapping around you like a soft garment. The air is changing now, losing its dry heat and taking on a crisp, refreshing quality that speaks of the approaching evening. You walk once more to the central fountain, and the water seems to sing with a clearer, more resonant tone in the cooling air. You splash your face with the cold water, feeling its life and its clarity, and you prepare to witness the transition of the Roman world from day into the gentle embrace of the night. Stepping out into the street, you see the town awakening in a way that is different from the morning. There is no longer the busy energy of commerce, but instead a soft and communal atmosphere of shared leisure and quiet reflection. The light has turned to a deep, honeyed gold, illuminating the facades of the temples and the high arches of the aqueduct with a brilliant final glow. You see neighbors standing in their doorways, leaning against the warm stone and speaking in low, comfortable tones. Their gestures are slow and relaxed, the conversation flowing with the ease of old friendship. You walk past a small courtyard where a family is preparing an evening meal. The smell of roasted grain, salted fish, and fresh herbs drift over the wall to mingle with the scent of the cooling earth. The sounds of the evening are a collection of soft and distant rhythms. You hear the rhythmic clatter of a single wooden shutter being latched, the muffled sound of a broom sweeping a stone porch, and the distant melodic belling from a nearby shrine. You walk toward the public square, where the long shadows of the columns now reach nearly the entire space. A few musicians have gathered near the portico, and the thin, sweet notes of a flute begin to drift through the air. The music is simple and circular, a melody that seems to have no beginning and no end, perfectly matching the slow movement of the golden light as it fades from the tops of the walls. As the sun dips below the horizon, the sky transforms into a vast canvas of violet, rose, and deep indigo. The first lanterns are being lit, and you watch as the small flames flicker into life behind the glass of the lamps. These lights are warm and orange, casting soft pools of radiance onto the paving stones and creating a world of gentle contrasts. You find yourself walking toward a communal gathering place, a stone terrace that overlooks the valley below. Others are there as well, sitting in quiet groups or standing alone to watch the stars begin to emerge in the darkening sky. You find the profound sense of unity in this moment, a shared recognition of the beauty of the ending day and the safety of the coming night. The conversation around you is hushed and respectful, a low hum of voices that blends with the sound of the wind in the pines. You hear stories being told, simple accounts of the day's small successes, and the quiet plans for the tomorrow. The light of the oil lamps reflects in the eyes of the people, creating a sense of warmth and intimacy that makes the large stone town feel like a single, vast home. You are offered a small cup of wine, watered down and cool, and you sip it slowly, feeling its warmth spread through you as the air continues to chill. The world is settling into a final, deep peace, a state of being where every task has been completed and every voice has found its resting place. The darkness has become a seamless and heavy curtain, drawn across the world to ensure that every living thing finds its way to a deep and restorative peace. You are resting in the very center of this silence, held within the cool and solid embrace of the stone house that has stood for generations and will stand for many more. The air in your chamber is perfectly motionless, a pool of cool tranquility that carries the faint, clean scent of the night earth and the cooling marble of the courtyard. The rhythm of your breath is the only clock that remains, a slow and steady tide that matches the quiet pulse of the sleeping town. Outside, the great paved streets are bathed in the soft blue-white light of the waning moon, and the tall, silent columns of the Forum cast long and unmoving shadows across the empty squares. The fountains continue their liquid song, but the sound is now a part of the air itself, a gentle and constant vibration that serves only to deepen the surrounding stillness. The shops are barred, the hearths are cold, and the busy voices of the morning are lost in the vast and velvet folds of the night. There is no sound from the stables, no movement in the gardens, and no light in the windows of the neighboring villas. The world is a place of absolute and beautiful order, a landscape of rest that stretches from the rolling hills to the silent, starlit sea. You feel the softness of the bed beneath you as a welcoming and endless support, a sanctuary where the weight of the day is finally and fully laid aside. Your mind is like a dark and quiet pool, reflecting only the stillness of the room and the distant flickering light of the stars. The thoughts of the market, the festivals, and the golden afternoon have all drifted away, leaving you in a state of pure and effortless being. You are part of the night, part of the stone, and part of the long and peaceful history of this land. The shadows in the room are soft and protective, blending into a single dark embrace that holds you safe within the heart of the home. The night moves forward with a slow and invisible grace, a journey toward a dawn that is still many hours away. For now, there is only the darkness and the silence, a precious and eternal moment where the world is at rest. The stars remain fixed in their ancient patterns, watching over the tiled roofs and the quiet gardens with a steady and silent light. The fountain whispers its final rhythmic lullaby, and the air remains as still as a bated breath. Everything is calm, everything is quiet, and the peace of the Roman world is absolute. You are sinking deeper into the warmth, deeper into the shadows, until there is nothing left but the slow, rhythmic pulse of the night and the infinite, beautiful quiet. The light is gone, the world is still, and the silence is your only companion. The stillness in the chamber has now reached a state of absolute equilibrium, a point where the air and the stone and the darkness are woven together into one single fabric of peace. You lie suspended in this quiet, the gentle weight of the linens feeling as light as the cooling air that rests upon your skin. The silver moon has drifted further toward the edge of the world, leaving the courtyard in a deep and velvet indigo, where the only movement is the slow and rhythmic dance of the shadows between the columns. The sound of the fountain has become a distant, liquid humming, a soft and constant vibration that seems to come from the very earth itself, a song of water and stone that has been sung since the first foundations were laid in the dust. The town beyond your walls is a silent dream of marble and tile, a world where the streets are empty and the great monuments stand in a quiet, nocturnal majesty. In the far distance, the hills are black and soft against the starlit sky, and the olive trees stand in unmoving rows, their silver leaves dark and heavy with the midnight dew. The empire is a vast and sleeping garden, held in the protective hand of the night, where every workshop is shuttered and every scroll is rolled tight in the silence of the library. There is a profound sense of continuity in this darkness, a feeling that you are resting in the same cradle of silence that has held the ancestors and the children of this land for 1,000 years. You feel your awareness expanding into the quiet corners of the house, touching the smooth ceramic of the jars in the kitchen and the cool, polished surface of the dining table. Everything is in its place, everything is orderly, and everything is at rest. The night is a long and beautiful pause, a time of healing and reflection, where the spirit is allowed to drift without a destination. You are sinking further into the cushions, your limbs feeling like the warm, heavy marble of a sun-drenched statue that has finally found the shade. The silence is not empty, but full of the deep and resonant peace of a life lived in harmony with the natural turning of the world. The stars continue their silent, eternal watch, flickering with a cold and beautiful light that touches the edges of the roof with a faint and ghostly shimmer. The air remains perfectly still, a cool and refreshing draft that brings the scent of the sea and the pine forests into the heart of the town. You are drifting on the very edge of the deepest sleep, where the world of form dissolves into the world of light and shadow. The rhythm of the fountain, the rhythm of your breath, and the rhythm of the stars have all become one single slow and beautiful pulse. The shadows in the room are soft and thick, wrapping you in a final gentle embrace that is as kind as the earth and as vast as the sky. The light is gone, the voices are a distant memory, and the world is a place of absolute and shimmering quiet. You are part of the stone, part of the night, and part of the eternal peace of the Roman world. The night is long, the darkness is total, and the silence is your final and most faithful companion. Everything is at rest, and the world is finally perfectly still. The deep, velvety darkness of the room has now become a soft and boundless ocean of calm, where every sound and every thought has finally been smoothed away by the passage of the night. You lie in the center of this profound stillness, feeling the absolute peace of the Roman world settling over you like a gentle and unseen mist. The air in your chamber is cool and sweet, carrying no movement, only the silent presence of the stone walls and the steady, protective strength of the timber beams above. The town beyond your walls is a silent dream of marble and tile, a world where the streets are empty and the great monuments stand in a quiet, nocturnal majesty. In the far distance, the hills are black and soft against the starlit sky, and the olive trees stand in unmoving rows, their silver leaves dark and heavy with the midnight dew. The empire is a vast and sleeping garden, held in the protective hand of the night, where every workshop is shuttered and every scroll is rolled tight in the silence of the library. There is a profound sense of continuity in this darkness, a feeling that you are resting in the same cradle of silence that has held the ancestors and the children of this land for 1,000 years. You feel your awareness expanding into the quiet corners of the house, touching the smooth ceramic of the jars in the kitchen and the cool, polished surface of the dining table. Everything is in its place, everything is orderly, and everything is at rest. The night is a long and beautiful pause, a time of healing and reflection, where the spirit is allowed to drift without a destination. You are sinking further into the cushions, your limbs feeling like the warm, heavy marble of a sun-drenched statue that has finally found the shade. The silence is not empty, but full of the deep and resonant peace of a life lived in harmony with the natural turning of the world. The stars continue their silent, eternal watch, flickering with a cold and beautiful light that touches the edges of the roof with a faint and ghostly shimmer. The air remains perfectly still, a cool and refreshing draft that brings the scent of the sea and the pine forests into the heart of the town. You are drifting on the very edge of the deepest sleep, where the world of form dissolves into the world of light and shadow. The rhythm of the fountain, the rhythm of your breath, and the rhythm of the stars have all become one single, slow, and beautiful pulse. The shadows in the room are soft and thick, wrapping you in a final, gentle embrace that is as kind as the earth and as vast as the sky. The light is gone, the world is still, and the silence is your only companion. The stillness in the chamber has now reached a state of absolute equilibrium, a point where the air and the stone and the darkness are woven together into one single fabric of peace. You lie suspended in this quiet, the gentle weight of the linens feeling as light as the cooling air that rests upon your skin. The silver moon has drifted further toward the edge of the world, leaving the courtyard in a deep and velvet indigo, where the only movement is the slow and rhythmic dance of the shadows between the columns. The sound of the fountain has become a distant, liquid humming, a soft and constant vibration that seems to come from the very earth itself, a song of water and stone that has been sung since the first foundations were laid in the dust. The town beyond your walls is a silent dream of marble and tile, a world where the streets are empty and the great monuments stand in a quiet, nocturnal majesty. In the far distance, the hills are black and soft against the starlit sky, and the olive trees stand in unmoving rows, their silver leaves dark and heavy with the midnight dew. The empire The story has come to an end, and the world we built together over these last 50 minutes is slowly fading into a quiet memory. If you are still here with me, listening to the sound of my voice, I want to thank you. Thank you for giving yourself this time. I can imagine your eyes might feel a little heavy by now. Perhaps the tension in your shoulders has started to melt away, and the rhythm of your breathing has slowed down. That is exactly why we are here. In this fast-paced world, it's so easy to carry the weight of the day into our beds. But here at Before You Sleep, our mission is to help you leave that weight behind. We believe that everyone deserves a peaceful bridge between the chaos of the day and the stillness of the night. If you enjoyed this journey and found a moment of peace today, I invite you to become a part of our growing community. Please subscribe to Before You Sleep. By joining us, you aren't just subscribing to a channel, you are choosing to prioritize your mental well-being and your rest. On this channel, we will continue to bring you deeply immersive stories that act as a sanctuary for your mind, calming narratives designed to ease anxiety and loneliness, a safe space where you can always return whenever the world feels a bit too loud. Before you drift off completely, please hit that like button if this story touched your heart, and leave a small comment, even if it's just a good night. It helps others find this sanctuary too. Now, it is time to let go. Turn off the lights of your mind, settle deep into your pillow, and let the silence wrap around you like a warm blanket. You are safe, you are at peace, and you are ready for a beautiful, deep sleep. Thank you for listening to Before You Sleep. I'll be here waiting for you with a new story tomorrow. Good night and sweet dreams.